the way he envisioned it. He was confident that the version of the film he edited would be favored by Universal Pictures. At this time, because Spielberg supervised the film, coupled with the superposition of factors such as shark movies, this Shark Beach actually has a certain degree of attention. Several media reported some interesting things that happened during the filming of Shark Beach, and the image of little Gilbert as stupid and arrogant was naturally promoted by the media. Some of them were smokescreens set off by Universal Pictures to draw public attention to the film. During the filming of Shark Beach, according to relevant sources, the 21-year-old director Gilbert Landrini Jr. acted arbitrarily and arrogantly. Universal Pictures is considering a risk assessment and has decided not to release the film. Los Angeles City Journal. As a rookie director, Gilbert Landrini Jr. is full of rebellious genes, meddling in the editing rights of film companies and making a lot of noise about it. Although this is the attitude of young people, film is not a job that can be solved with attitude. The future of the film, Shark Beach, is worrying, or it may not be released in theaters. Santa Monica Morning Post. It is reported that at present, Universal Pictures has decided to separate Gilbert Jr. and the editor, and the two will edit a version separately, and Universal Pictures will make a decision to see who has a better effect. The Burbank Candid. Little Gilbert was happy to see his name mentioned repeatedly in the newspapers. It's not a good reputation, but what does it matter? 30 years later, aren't all those traffic stars black and red first, and then whitewashed through something? As long as Shark Beach is released successfully, all the bad reputation, criticism, and abuse will be replaced by praise and praise. The urine nature of the media has been the same for decades, and little Gilbert knows it too well. It's a pity that the top media in Los Angeles, such as the Los Angeles Times, Time Magazine, and Vanity Fair, did not participate in the report. Otherwise, Gilbert Jr.'s bad reputation would not be confined to Los Angeles and nearby areas, but could spread throughout the United States. However, to be content, these second- and third-tier local media reports can be regarded as a little fame for little Gilbert. On the contrary, Paul Collins was so angry when he saw the report. The report criticized little Gilbert, yes, but did not mention his name. Just by using an editor as a title, who knows who he is? But there is no way, and the media is not something he can control. Unless he is willing to spend money to buy off the media, he will not gain anything by watching little Gilbert being scolded. In 1991, the means of media information were still quite limited, namely television media and newspapers. If there is an online media, such as Twitter or something, then Paul Collins can tweet that the editor is himself. It's a pity that the internet isn't very developed these days, let alone Twitter. Gilbert Jr. is not Tom Cruise, and the media is not interested in his enemies. They just want to scold. As a result, the hapless Paul Collins was ignored and could only edit the film silently in the editing room. If you get closer, you can still hear Paul Collins scolding, "You should go to the San Fernando Valley to film. Your whole family should go to the San Fernando Valley to film." Needless to say, this must be scolding Gilbert Jr., and it seems that Paul Collins still hasn't been able to forgive Gilbert Jr. Not to mention, little Gilbert's quality is definitely very popular to go to the San Fernando Valley, but he definitely doesn't want to go. However, this media report also made some ordinary fans pay attention to the fact that there was a shark movie produced by Spielberg in production. All of a sudden, this sense of anticipation came up in an instant. Spielberg's Jaws in 1975 earned $470 million at the global box office at a production cost of $9 million. The film became the global box office champion at the time and the first in film history, until it was replaced by Star Wars 2 years later. It is worth mentioning that Jaws was originally intended to be released on Christmas 1974, but was later postponed to the summer of 1975. At that time, the distributor was wary that the film would fail miserably at the box office, but they didn't expect to get such a high box office in the end. Also started with Jaws, and the summer file gradually became the most important schedule of the year. So you can even say that Spielberg is the pioneer of the North American summer file. It was 1975. You can imagine how high the gold content is. Since then, Spielberg has continued to create one box office myth after another, but for Spielberg's fans, Jaws has always had an irreplaceable position. And this Shark Beach, produced by Spielberg, has become a substitute for this nostalgia. As Little Gilbert said before, Shark Beach can be called the spiritual sequel to Jaws in a way. It's good to be under the banner of Spielberg, but now Universal Pictures has decided internally that it is still necessary to see the finished film before deciding on the distribution strategy. After all, the lineup of Gilbert Jr. and Gwyneth Paltrow doesn't look like it can be a big hit. In addition to the contempt for this film within Universal, another reason is that Little Gilbert is too young to be trusted, and another reason is Gwyneth Paltrow. Quite simply, because Gwyneth Paltrow is an actress. In Hollywood in the 90s, actresses had a much inferior status to male actors. At this time, most of the actresses are in the role of a vase, unless it is a special women's film, and it is possible for an independent film to have an actress as the first protagonist. Of course, it is not without exceptions. For example, the first protagonist of the classic 1979 sci-fi movie Alien is Sigourney Weaver, or Julia Roberts, who takes the route of a silly big sister, acting in some romance films and comedies, and becoming the sweetheart of the whole United States. But that's Sigourney Weaver, and Julia Roberts and Gwyneth Paltrow is also a Spielberg goddaughter. What to compare with these two top Hollywood actresses? This is also the reason why Paul Collins focused the clip on Gwyneth Paltrow's figure. In the eyes of some global insiders, in addition to sharks, this Shark Beach is also interesting for Gwyneth Paltrow's figure, commonly known as a meat-selling film. If it weren't for Spielberg and Jurassic Park, Universal Pictures would never have invested in the release of this movie. But now it's too late to say anything. The money has been paid, and the film has been filmed. At this time, even if you are not optimistic, you still have to do the work that should be done. As a filmmaker, Domer Blake was very concerned about the post-production of the film, and he went to see the edited versions of Paul Collins and Gilbert Jr. Paul Collins, as Thomas Blake expected, was a very ordinary film with a thrilling plot, but overall uneventful. But the editing on Gilbert Jr.'s side was beyond Domer Blake's expectations. First of all, Gilbert Jr. has greatly shortened the length of the film, and the content of the feature film is only 81 minutes. Even with the end credits, it is less than 85 minutes. A normal movie usually has 90 minutes of content, which is an hour and a half. In order to tell the story as much as possible, all films are tacitly increasing the duration, and movies of more than 120 minutes are not uncommon. But Gilbert Jr. did the opposite, much to the surprise of Domer Blake. In this regard, Gilbert Jr.'s explanation is, in order to arouse the emotions of the audience as much as possible and keep them from resting for a minute, I deleted a large number of meaningless empty shots. The tight rhythm is one of the magic weapons to mobilize the audience's emotions. Domer Blake was speechless. He had seen the edited version of Paul Collins, and to be honest, Gilbert Jr.'s version was much better than Paul Collins. Could it be that someone is really born a genius in film? Domer Blake felt as if he had seen the rise of another Spielberg, and as soon as this idea came out, he quickly threw it off. It was too exaggerated. He didn't dare to think about it. At the end of the day's work, little Gilbert returns to his apartment to rest. The film is almost finished, and it is about to be time to test the results, and little Gilbert is still a little nervous at this time. When he arrived at the door of his apartment, little Gilbert found a girl with short dark brown hair, a leather skirt, and long boots waiting for him at the door of the apartment. When the girl saw little Gilbert, she took the initiative to meet her. Five-fingered girl. It seems that little Gilbert had only said to Gurney for the death of Paltrow. Presumably you're Gwen's friend. Gilbert Jr. said. Gwen? You're pretty close. Get to know me. My name is Verona Red. The girl held out her hand and shook little Gilbert's hand. I know you. You acted in Edward Scissorhands last year with Johnny Depp. Little Gilbert said why it was so familiar. It turned out to be this woman. Verona Ryder waved her hand and said, Don't mention him to me. We broke up. Huh. Little Gilbert was even more surprised. You still talk to Johnny Depp? That's all in the past. Why don't you invite me in and sit? Verona Ryder tilted her head and gestured. Oh, okay. Little Gilbert hurriedly opened the door. Please come in, sit casually, what to drink? It didn't seem to be anything, and little Gilbert casually took a bottle of Coke for Verona Ryder. When Verona Ryder came in, she looked at the one-bedroom room, which was a little messy and didn't seem to be cleaned up very often. That's where you're doing yoga with Gwen? Verona Ryder rummaged through the bedside table and found the cover. She's even telling you this. Little Gilbert was dumbfounded. Look at you, said Verona Ryder, looking unaware. We talk about everything, and she discussed your abilities and dimensions with me. Little Gilbert was just drinking water, and when he heard this, he didn't collapse, and the water squirted out of his mouth. What is this? A good girlfriend in the United States? Verona Ryder continued, I don't believe you're so good at doing yoga. I think Gwen is bragging. Only now did little Gilbert know what Gwyneth Paltrow meant, and it turned out to be so. Hey, can you take the initiative and take off your clothes quickly? Huh, good. So, naturally, little Gilbert and Verona Ryder did a set of yoga together until they sweated profusely. After exercising, the two lay on the bed, and Verona Ryder took out a cigarette and began to swallow the clouds and handed it to little Gilbert to smoke together. However, little Gilbert refused. He did not smoke in his previous life, and he is the same now. You're such a weirdo. Verona Ryder glanced at little Gilbert, her fingers drawing circles around little Gilbert's strong chest muscles. I kind of know why Gwen is so crush on you. You are indeed strong, and you are as popular with women as your father. Verona Ryder said again. Do you know about my father? Little Gilbert asked curiously. Winona Ryder explains, I've heard people talk about it. Little Gilbert was speechless. It seems that the old man's romantic history when he was young was widely circulated in Hollywood. The old man himself often boasted that he had a one-night stand with Hollywood legend Marilyn Monroe and dated Audrey Hepburn. I don't know if it's true or not, but it's true that it's popular with women. The old man is 66 years old this year, and he can still go to a bar girl to be chic, and his ability is really strong. All right, it's time for me to go too. Thank you for giving me such a pleasant evening. Verona Ryder got up and dressed. That's it? Don't you stay here? Little Gilbert asked. I'm not Gwen. If my agent finds out that I'm staying at another man's house at night, I'm probably going to be scolded. Verona Ryder gave little Gilbert a gentle kiss on the lips. I'll come to you anytime. Tough man, bye-bye. With that, Winona Ryder drifted away, leaving a burst of incense for little Gilbert to reminisce. Perhaps the agent was too close, and Gilbert Jr. didn't see Verona Ryder for the next few days. But Gwyneth Paltrow called and asked how Gilbert Jr. felt. That's what you're calling? Gilbert Jr. said he couldn't understand it. If it's not for this, what else can it be for? No, our movies are almost finished, so you don't care? Gwyneth Paltrow then remembered, oh, we made a movie. Recently, I took acting classes, and everyone was stupid. Anyway, how is the movie? It's almost over, and I'll be able to see this movie soon. Little Gilbert replied. Gwyneth Paltrow was happy. That's great. You have to call me when you advertise. I have long wanted to go out and play. Now I have a chance. Gilbert Jr. was speechless, and it seemed that Gwyneth Paltrow didn't care if the film would be a success. Also, she is Spielberg's goddaughter. She starred in Captain Hook in her debut, and she directly played the heroine in the second movie, Shark Beach. Even if the movie Shark Beach fails, it will not affect Gwyneth Paltrow's resources in Hollywood. On the contrary, little Gilbert, to be fearful, ask God to ask the Buddha to ask Allah. All kinds of requests must make Shark Beach successful. If it doesn't work out, Gilbert Jr. will have to wait a long time before he has the opportunity to continue directing films. Men and women can only be used as a concoction, not to mention, it is really decompressing to release it like this when the pressure is high. It's no wonder that many people in Hollywood are keen on relationships, all kinds of relationships, both men and women. But then again, compared to the others, little Gilbert is simply a lotus flower in the mud, pure enough. People are not only engaged in relationships, but also engaged in drugs, big hemp and drugs. These are the things that little Gilbert is trying to stay away from compared to relationships. Miscellaneous aside, the movie is the foundation, and after various twists and turns, the movie Shark Beach has finally completed all the post-production. There are now 2 editions of Shark Beach for Universal Pictures to choose from. After watching Gilbert Jr.'s version, Dormer Blake strongly recommended Gilbert Jr.'s edited Shark Beach to the executives. This made Universal Pictures curious about what kind of editing would be highly recommended by an experienced producer like Thomas Blake. Although Dormer Blake's opinion was not adopted, it has to be said that it was also because of his recommendation that Universal Pictures executives were curious about the edited version of Gilbert Jr. To a certain extent, this makes up for Gilbert Jr.'s shortcomings, allowing Universal Pictures executives to judge the 2 versions of the film from a relatively objective and fair perspective. The internal test screening was soon announced, and this internal test screening included not only Akio Tani, president of Universal Pictures, and Lou Vassell, vice president, but also executives from various departments such as distribution, marketing, and publicity. In addition, Universal's selection experts will participate in the preview screening and provide input to the executives. In addition, Spielberg also sent Frank Marshall. He hadn't seen the finished film, and he was curious to see what little Gilbert was up to. But because of his busy work, he didn't have time for the preview screening, so he asked Frank Marshall to come over and take a look, and go back to give him feedback. Little Gilbert sat in the corner, looking at the top of Universal Pictures. The Japanese president recognized it at a glance. Lou Vasseur had seen it, and he didn't know anyone else. On this occasion, he is a small character. But what is about to happen today will determine his fate. So, he was nervous. Everyone is here. After sweeping around the preview room, Lou Vassell said directly, "Then let's start." First up was a Paul Collins edited version. Paul Collins also came and sat in the corner on the other side and looked at little Gilbert, just as little Gilbert looked over. The 2 made eye contact and looked at each other from a distance. Paul Collins tried to crush Gilbert Jr. with a sharp look, but Gilbert Jr. glared back without showing weakness. Paul Collins was still thinking to himself, "Boy, you're still very young in Hollywood. Let me teach you what editing is." Little Gilbert doesn't care about Paul Collins' eyes at all. He has been mixing for more than 10 years and is just a small editor who cuts films for himself, and this Paul Collins is like this. Sure enough, Paul Collins' film was, as Gilbert Jr. expected, a regular Hollywood edit. There are no surprises, and they are stable, which is in line with the attitude of Hollywood studios to seek stability. But for a film that goes off the rails, being flat is the biggest mistake. In fact, after watching this version of Shark Beach, the response of the global executives who participated in the preview screening was average. Akio Tani looked at little Gilbert in the corner and then asked Lou Vassell, "Lou, what do you think of this film?" "It's okay. The picture is beautiful. Gwyneth Paltrow has something to look at, and it may be profitable to put it in the videotape market after it is released," Lou Vasseur said. A film selection expert expressed his opinion. This is just an ordinary film with the name of a shark, which seems a little boring. However, there are a few shots that are quite good, and it can be seen that the director has put in a lot of hard work. It is rare to hear a more pertinent evaluation, and Akio Tani's face is slightly better. To be honest, although this movie is his main investment, he didn't expect this movie to create surprises. But the way it was filmed, some of it was too ordinary, and he was a little disappointed. Hearing everyone's discussion, little Gilbert sitting in the left corner is nothing. Anyway, the version he edited is in the back. On the contrary, Paul Collins couldn't sit still, and he didn't expect that his edited version didn't get any good reviews, and of course, there were no bad reviews. But for Paul Collins, it's still a little unacceptable. He'd heard, and Dormer Blake said that the edited version of Gilbert Jr. was amazing. If the company's top management is satisfied with Gilbert Jr.'s version, it will be a fatal blow to him. Unfortunately, as a small editor, Paul Collins did not have a say in this occasion. In an instant, Paul Collins came up with various ideas, such as going to close the power gates, threatening the resignation of the higher-ups, and so on. But Paul Collins held back and didn't dare to do so. There's also a cut version of Little Gilbert. Let's end it quickly. Lou Vasseur motioned for the playback to continue. Soon, another version of Shark Beach was played on the screen. As an expert in film selection, Mike Harris felt a little bored, and he watched the previous film and was a little bored. What else is there to do in this film? It's just overthinking. Mike Harris, who is no longer interested in what is on the screen, bows his head and chats with the people around him, chatting about the interesting things that have happened in Hollywood recently. But a few exclamations pulled him back from the chat to the screen. Holy crab, it's so dangerous just now. Shit, is this really a movie? How is it different from the previous version? This version looks so tense and exciting. What's the situation? Mike Harris fixed his eyes on the screen, and this look can no longer be taken back. The predator perspective brought by handheld photography turns the lens into the shark itself, and the heroine swims in front, and the sense of substitution is full. Sharp and dazzling editing, the rhythm is very tight, and the rhythm is completely different from the previous films. This version of the film is like a deadly flower, knowing that it is dangerous, but you just can't take your eyes off it. It's so scary, so thrilling, so exciting. It's been a long time since I've had such a refreshing viewing experience. Not only Mike Harris, but most of the people at the preview screening never communicated after watching the film. There were only voices from the screen, as well as heavy panting, and everyone's emotions were mobilized by the film. Watched the protagonist Sally escape from the shark's mouth again and again while trying to save herself. Just such a scene, a beach, a reef, a buoy, and a heroine constitute the whole story. The story is simple, but the story is very exciting, terrifying, and interesting, which makes people rush adrenaline, and the pleasure of watching the movie comes in bursts. It's like bathing on a summer beach, and I just want people to shout out, "It's good, it's cool to watch." At this time, Gilbert Jr. looked at Paul Collins again, but Paul Collins didn't pay attention to him at all. At this time, Paul Collins was biting his lip tightly, sweating on his face, looking nervous, as if he was scared by the exciting plot of the movie. But in fact, it wasn't. Paul Collins was stunned by Gilbert Jr.'s dazzling clip. This clip is 100 times better than his version, and it doesn't look like a movie at all. That's what makes Paul Collins nervous, which means that Gilbert Jr. has a better edited film than he does, and it means that he has failed in his work. The film is finally over, and the movie of more than 80 minutes is like a roller coaster, tense and exciting, with no urine spots. At this time, Akio Tani was happy, and this was what he wanted to see. Lou, what do you think of this version of the movie? Akio Tani asked. Lou Vassell was tempted to say no, but as a studio executive, he was most taboo about being emotional. What's more, the movie is good-looking, which is a good thing for Universal Pictures. So Lou Vasseur said honestly, "Very good. To be honest, I didn't expect this movie to be so exciting. I didn't expect it to be so good." Akio Tani asked the executives in the back again, "What do you think?" Mike Harris said, "Mr. Tani, that's the beauty of editing. The same movie, different clips can become different movies." Domer Blake added at this time, "This is the edited version of Gilbert Jr., and it was a wise decision for Mr. Vasseur to have the two of them cut separately." Hearing this, Lou Vasseur's face looked much better, but Paul Collins was on pins and needles. He just wanted to escape from this ghost place at this time. Who knew who the little Gilbert was, and he actually had such ability, so he didn't expect this result at all. By this time, the winner had been decided. Except for Akio Tani, all of the people present are senior practitioners in the film industry, and they still have a vision, so they naturally know which version of the movie is better. Even if Akio Tani doesn't understand the film industry, as an ordinary viewer, he thinks that the edited version of Gilbert Jr.'s movie is wonderful. As a result, the edited version of the film by Gilbert Jr. was chosen for theatrical release. At this time, it was the turn of the director of the distribution department to speak. "Although the film is very exciting, we still have a meeting in the afternoon to discuss how to distribute this film." This suggestion is very pertinent. After all, the movie Shark Beach is all about the spiritual sequel to Jaws and the name of Spielberg's executive producer. Universal Pictures will discuss how to distribute the film. There will be a meeting in the afternoon, but this is the end of today's test screening. Little Gilbert stood at the door to bid farewell to the high-level executives, and the high-level executives had many approving glances and praises. "Little Gilbert, well done. Little Gilbert, you've inherited your father's cinematic talent, and this movie is excellent. Come on, do a good job, the future is promising." Little Gilbert kept nodding his head in gratitude, surprised on the surface, but calm inside. In his opinion, this effect is a matter of course, and there is nothing to be proud of. He looked at Paul Collins' position, which had long been empty, and Paul Collins left as soon as possible. In front of him, he also carried a gift to apologize and reconcile with others, and at this time he caught up and scolded, but it seemed that he was calculating, and he would repay it. Presumably, Paul Collins will also lose the trust of Universal Pictures in the future, as long as he doesn't come to trouble him anymore. Little Gilbert doesn't bother to deal with him anymore. Successful people should not be stumped by losers, but should be brave and stride forward and never back down. End of the preview screening. Universal Pictures officials gathered in a small conference room to discuss the promotion of Shark Beach. Perhaps because of the big surprise brought by the film, or perhaps because of Spielberg, Akio Tani, president of Universal Pictures, and Lou Vasseur, vice president, also appeared in the conference room. Waiting for the secretary to bring coffee to everyone, Lou Vasseur, at the signal of Akio Tani, presided over the meeting. "Mike, tell me what you think. I can tell you appreciate this film." Lou Vasseur first gave the floor to selection expert Mike Harris. Mike Harris took a sip of coffee, cleared his throat, and said, "This is a thrilling B-grade thriller, and the director, named Little Gilbert, has done a pretty good job. To be honest, at first I didn't believe he could make a good film. But after watching the movie, I kind of believe that the work done by this young man is quite remarkable." Levitt, what about your opinion? What kind of strategy do you think we should use to release this film? Lou Vasseur asked the head of the distribution department again. Levitt Gore, the head of distribution, replied, "Although the quality of the film is good, I recommend a conservative distribution strategy. Although this film is very exciting, thrilling and exciting, we are not sure whether the market will buy it or not." In addition to the gimmick of director and producer Spielberg, the film also lacks appealing star actors, and it is extremely unfavorable when it is announced. This means that we have to devote more resources to publicity. None of the executives who can be mixed into the executives of Hollywood giant film companies are stupid, and what Levitt Gore said is also an objective fact. So the top management quickly agreed, and Lou Vasseur and Akio Tani said, "Mr. Tani, we will promote it according to the B category film. How about arranging film ratings, media screenings, and screenings?" As long as the film was advanced to the theatrical release stage, Akio Tani thought that Spielberg should also be satisfied, so he nodded in agreement. "Very good. I'm a layman in the matter of movie distribution. Just follow the plan you set." The president agreed, and the distribution strategy for Shark Beach was soon arranged, and in a few days there will be a preview screening for critics and the media, and the screening is also on the agenda. On the other hand, after Frank Marshall watched the preview screening, he went back to report to Spielberg. "It's beyond my imagination, Steven. You should really go see it for yourself." Frank Marshall was full of praise for the film. For a film with only $3.5 million in investment, Gilbert Jr. did a perfect enough job. "Really?" Spielberg was relieved to hear this, but still asked, "Based on your feelings, what kind of results do you think the film will achieve?" "It's not good to say." Frank Marshall thought for a while and said, "But I don't think it's a problem to return on investment or even make a profit, and the rest depends on the publicity of Universal Pictures and the market feedback." "In that case, I'll help," Spielberg said. "How do you want to help?" "Recently, the publicity of Captain Hook has also started, and it shouldn't be a big problem to help promote it when you are on TV media and interviewed by newspapers, right?" Spielberg asked. "I think Columbia Pictures should have no opinion," Frank Marshall said. "That's good." Spielberg nodded. "You can arrange it and let the host mention it when you go on the show." "Okay." Frank Marshall went down to arrange. The movie Captain Hook was invested and produced by Amperin Entertainment itself, but the distributor was not Universal Pictures, but Sony Columbia Pictures. This can also be seen why Universal Pictures will take the risk of investing in the distribution of Shark Beach for Spielberg, who is very sought after in Hollywood. After the internal test screening, Gilbert Jr. did not finish all his work. He edited 2 trailers at the request of Universal Pictures. Beach scenery, sexy babes, scary sharks, it's all included. At this stage, the work that the director can do is largely over. Now is not the time when the internet media is developed and the current directors are more behind the scenes and the star actors are shining in front of the stage. Later, with the development of internet media and media information, directors will be more involved in the work in front of the stage. But now little Gilbert is a little trash fish, and the media is not interested in paying attention to him. The previous media reports were also because of the popularity of Spielberg's producer, otherwise he would have been ignored by the media like Paul Collins. Even so, in media reports, he doesn't have a good reputation, and any stupid, arrogant, and unknowingly thick labels are attached to him, and he has a bad impression of the outside world. Because Shark Beach is invested and distributed by Universal Pictures alone, there is no third-party company involved, so Universal Pictures does not have to share with other companies. The cruise accounts have been settled, and after the release is confirmed, Gilbert Jr.'s last director's salary has also been paid to his account. $100,000 is not much, and there are taxes to pay, plus a loan to pay for college, and there is not much left. However, Gilbert Jr. still gave $5,000 to his Aunt Meryl Clater, whose family lives in San Francisco, and her cousin Elle Mays is also in school, and life is not easy. As for old Gilbert, the old man will always find a solution. It's a big deal to give up the old face and go to the old lover to eat, which is not a difficult thing for the old man. After the money was sent to Aunt Meryl Cleet, the aunt quickly called, "Little Gilbert, what are you doing with me?" Gilbert Jr. explained, "I've settled my director's salary, and I'll call you a little bit after paying off my college loan and leaving some left." Meryl Clater refused. "No, our family is living well, and we don't need you to pay for it." "Little aunt, Don't be busy refusing, even if you don't need it. Ellie needs it. Little Gilbert advised. She will need to spend money on college, social activities, and making friends in the future. Do you want her to spend college like me? Meryl Clater didn't resist the mention of her daughter. Well, thank you, little Gilbert. You're welcome. We're a family, by the way. Little Gilbert remembered something. My first movie is about to be released. Will I have time to come to Los Angeles to see the premiere then? Okay. Meryl Clater on the other end of the phone was delighted. I said a long time ago that you have extraordinary film talent, and your uncle still doesn't believe it. Now our family is going to Los Angeles, and let your uncle take a good look at the movie you made. Okay, you're always welcome to Los Angeles. Little Gilbert laughed. After a few more pleasantries, little Gilbert hung up the phone and let out a long sigh. Although he has nothing to do with this family in his soul, he was very confused when he first came over, and it was his little Aunt Meryl's family who helped him through the difficulties. Even if there is no blood relationship, but the Chinese pay attention to a knowledge of grace, he is naturally the same. He is not one of these uneducated foreigners. Of course, he has to repay his little Aunt Meryl's family. But look at the blonde and blue-eyed self in the mirror now, saying that he is a Chinese soul. No one will believe it. Gilbert Jr. was the one who had no capital, and Universal's distribution plan soon came to him. The release plan was conservative, much to Gilbert Jr.'s dissatisfaction. He would love to see the film open in 1,000 or even 3,000 theaters, but he also knew it was whimsical. Today, a copy of 35mm film costs about $600, or $1.8 million for 3,000 screens. Shark Beach cost $3.5 million to make, and with the market outlook uncertain, Universal Pictures must adopt a conservative distribution strategy. Observe the market reaction in the way of on-demand screenings, look at the audience's word of mouth, and see how the box office of a single theater is. If the performance is good, expand the screening. With Universal's distribution capabilities, it wasn't a problem to print thousands of copies in a short period of time and ship them to theaters across North America. If the performance is not good, then stop the loss in time and push Shark Beach to the videotape and copyright market. This is the big Hollywood company that controls the distribution ability, and in Hollywood, only the film company with the distribution ability can be called a large company, and it is also one of the prerequisites for becoming a giant. Until mid-September, there were still few advertisements and news about Shark Beach in the media, which made little Gilbert a little nervous and had a tendency to lose sleep. Verona Ryder came to him a few times, taking the opportunity to practice yoga with Verona Ryder so that little Gilbert could release some stress. Little Gilbert felt that he had fallen into a tangled trap, and after writing the script, he was afraid that no one would invest in it, and, if he did, he was afraid that the film company would not release it. When it is released, I am worried about whether the movie can be a success, whether the audience likes it or not, and what the media reputation is. In short, before the dust settles, it is a source of tension and stress. Perhaps knowing Gilbert Jr.'s nervousness, Spielberg specially asked his assistant Jonathan to call him and invite Gilbert Jr. to a banquet. Little Gilbert didn't want to go, but then he thought about it. Such a banquet had a stronger social function. It's a great place to meet more Hollywood professionals and expand your network. So little Gilbert deliberately took out the suit he hadn't worn for a long time, found a clothing store to tidy it up, and wore it when the time came. This suit was bought for him by his little Aunt Meryl Clater, a set of more than $1,000, and it has a kind of industrial cheap feeling, and it looks like walking on Wall Street like those down-and-out stockbrokers. But it can't be helped. This is already his best outfit. You can't wear a t-shirt or jeans, can you? That would be considered impolite and disrespectful by the owner. In line with the principle that as long as I don't feel inferior, it is not me who is inferior, and little Gilbert put it on with confidence. He also made a hairstyle for himself, with a hairstyle with a big back, a bit like the shape of Xiaolizi in The Aviator. Of course, Xiaolizi is only 16 years old now, and he has just finished filming the 7th season of the drama Growing Pains. After cleaning up, little Gilbert took a taxi and went to the banquet site. The banquet was held at the famous Hilton Hotel, where Los Angeles celebrities and superstars gathered and media reporters held up their cameras to take pictures. However, because it was a private banquet, the media reporters did not enter the banquet hall and could only take pictures outside. When little Gilbert arrived, a large group of reporters had gathered outside. A Bentley drove up and stopped in front of the hotel, and with the people who came down, the reporters went crazy. It's Julia Roberts. Oh my God, she's so beautiful. Damn, hurry up and take pictures. Reporters flocked forward, and no one paid attention to little Gilbert. At this time, a voice sounded in the ears of little Gilbert. I envy it. This is the Hollywood superstar with infinite scenery. As soon as little Gilbert turned around, he saw the man standing next to him and recognized him at a glance. For those who follow Hollywood movies and movie stars, this person is familiar to many people, and his movies are also liked by many Chinese movie fans. Hello, my name is Matt Damon, and I've just arrived in Los Angeles. The person who came took the initiative to stretch out his hand and greeted. Hello. Gilbert Jr. shook hands with Matt Damon. My name is Little Gilbert Landrini. The two greeted each other, and Matt Damon asked, Are you also an actor? What movies have you acted in? Or is it an episode? No. Gilbert Jr. shook his head. I'm the director. Director? Matt Damon looked at little Gilbert in surprise. You look about the same age as me, so you will be a director? In my impression, directors are all in their 30s, but it is rare for little Gilbert to be so young. As you can see, I'm indeed a director. It's just that my first film hasn't been released yet. Little Gilbert. Oh. Matt Damon suddenly realized that the executive director and assistant director are also directors. Let's go in. Little Gilbert took Matt Damon with him, intending to enter the ballroom. Matt Damon caught up and walked side by side with little Gilbert. I tried just now, but there is no invitation to let me in. Do you have any way to get in? Isn't it all right to just go in? What else can be done? Little Gilbert gave Matt Damon a strange look and continued walking. But Matt Damon scratched his head. We don't have an invitation. You don't have to worry about this. Just follow me. Little Gilbert's confident appearance made Matt Damon curious. So, he followed little Gilbert to see how little Gilbert got in. As a result, when he got to the door, Matt Damon saw little Gilbert greeting one of the people inside. Hi, Jonathan. The man named Jonathan came out, looked at little Gilbert and said, Don't you have a better formal suit? Little Gilbert smiled embarrassedly. This is my most expensive dress. Forget it, then let's go inside. Who is this? Jonathan noticed Matt Damon next to him. Gilbert Jr. introduced, My friend, Matt Damon. Friend, let's go in together. With that, Jonathan led the two into the banquet hall. Mr. Spielberg is over there. You go over and say hello yourself, and I'll be busy greeting guests. Jonathan admonished. Okay, you're busy. I can do it myself. Little Gilbert was clear. When Jonathan left, Matt Damon asked Gilbert Jr. in surprise, Who is he? Spielberg's assistant to director. Little Gilbert replied, Do you know director Spielberg? Matt Damon was even more surprised. It's nothing. I've told you long ago that I'm a director, and director Spielberg was the executive producer of the first film I directed. Little Gilbert replied as a matter of course, so ordinary. But these words made Matt Damon, who had just come to Los Angeles, blown up on the outside and tender on the inside. That's Spielberg, so to speak. As long as Spielberg can take a fancy to him, he will be able to gain a firm foothold in Hollywood immediately. Although he had only known Gilbert Jr. for a while, Matt Damon felt that he had reacquainted with Gilbert Jr. This young director, who is about the same age as himself, seems to be a hidden person. At this moment, even the cheap suit on little Gilbert has become a representative of low-key luxury in Matt Damon's eyes. Look at the people. Obviously, they have a deep relationship with the big director, but they are still like me, wearing cheap suits to attend such a high-end banquet. Is this the pattern of high society? Matt Damon felt like he had come to his senses. It's so cold that I don't want to code words,